Take coming away on a Friday. Chris went in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp here live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN. Great segment there with Jamison Welsh talking all things NBA, getting his perspective when it comes to free agency coming up. Of course, NBA Summer League, going to be a lot of fun coming up next week here in Vegas. The spotlight when it comes to the NBA will be on our city here in Las Vegas as they get to work down there at the Thomas and Mack and also the Cox Pavilion. Tremendous setup, JD, up there. And it's great for NBA fans because during the regular season, obviously, it's, when you go to the actual, home NBA arenas, a lot more security. You don't get the chance to be up close and personal with the players. That's not the case here in Vegas. I mean, you literally, I've talked about this on the air before. You can go to these NBA Summer League games, and there'll be NBA superstars just wandering through the arenas.
And you'll see owners.
Yeah, owners and general managers.
I'm pretty sure I saw Jeff Bezos there last year.
Absolutely.
I saw Mark Cuban. It's the who's who of the NBA. Yeah. Loves to come out to Vegas for the Summer League.
And, of course, with the NBA draft, obviously the key guys, they're going to be here, whether it's Zion Williamson, whether it's John Morant, whether it's R.J. Barrett. And I believe the first night, I think Friday night, you're going to see a matchup of the top two picks in the draft, and Morant and Zion Williamson. So it's a hot ticket here in town, and yet it's still affordable. I think it's around $20-$25. You can go out there, get tickets, and get a chance to see these young stars. And
if you go out on a weekend, the game will be sold out. There will
without question.
Absolutely be, and especially with this year with the star power with Zion involved, it'll be 20,000 people no matter what, all day long, every game on the weekend.
And what's crazy, JD, is in the last
early.
2 to 3 years, right? They've been putting these games on national television. We're talking about putting Summer League games, right? Which 4 or 5 years ago that'd be unheard of, playing these on ESPN or TNT or they're playing these games on national TV. Between franchises that they're not, we're not talking about storied franchises. Yes, they did have the Celtics and the Lakers on last year, one of the Saturday night primetime games. But this year, you're going to have a focus on teams like the New Orleans Pelicans and like the Memphis Grizzlies. So that's good exposure for the league as a whole. So we're looking forward to that coming up next week. It is the Vegas Take coming your way. I'm Chris Wynn, in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp. Now, we had some action in the Women's World Cup, JD, today as the U.S. Women's National Team came out on top 2-1 over France as Megan Rapinoe, another solid game. She was also instrumental in the game on Monday when they played Spain. She ended up with 2 penalty kick goals in that matchup as they won that one 2-1 as well, too. She scored 2 more goals today. Of course, a lot of the focus with her has been on the anthem controversy and her comments regarding a trip to the White House with and her kind of a back and forth. I mean, I guess it wasn't really a back and forth, but it was just kind of both comments by the president as well as Megan Rapinoe with respect to possibly visiting the White House. I think I have pretty good knowledge of what your opinion is on this as far as Megan Rapinoe and what her thoughts are and what your thoughts are in general as far as these teams going to the White House. I mean, is it something that should be thought of as, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? And, regardless of what you think of the politics of the day, do you think that if these teams are invited, that these players should be going to the White House?
Well, if you're an American citizen, I think it's necessary to pay your respect to the highest office in the United States, whether or not Trump is in office or whoever's in office, whether or not you like the president, it's still the highest office in the country that you're a citizen of.
See, I have a different perspective. I mean, not different from you. I actually happen to agree with you when it's about the national team. If it's a national team, right? It's Team USA.
Especially a national team.
Then I think that does take precedent over, what you may have as far as, political differences with Donald Trump.
It looks really catty. It looks really petty when you're Team USA and you can't even visit the White House. And Chris, now who's to say they're going to win the World Cup? They could lose. And the way that she approached it, the way when she said, "Oh, I'm not going to the effing White House," I mean that was pretty arrogant on her part. And she is a great player, but you have to win the World Cup first before you get there.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily was her angle. I think she was just basically she doesn't like Donald Trump, right? She hates Donald Trump, and so she was disgusted by the question. And I don't think she was thinking about it as if it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to win the World Cup. I mean, that goes without saying, right? I mean, they have to win it first before they would even get the invitation extended. Right?
I would invite them. I would invite any Team USA to the White House, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're representing the entire country.
Yes.
So whether they win or not, I would still invite them because, again, they represent the United States of America at the highest level for that particular sport.
702-257-5396 are the phone lines. Your thoughts on this and many other topics that we've talked about today. Let's jump on the phone lines. We now are joined by the esteemed co-host of the Vegas Take, Brian Shapiro, joining us on the phone, JD, after I'm sure it was a very busy day handling his business with his vehicle. The red Chariot,
hey,
JD,
what happened to
was
this?
taken care of, my friend. He went all out. I'm telling you, JD, you saw the picture, right? It looked like a nice, beautiful candy apple red color.
I looked at it for 3 seconds, and then I passed out from confusion.
Because you thought
it just made zero sense.
You went out and bought a new car. That's what you thought,
I was not
right?
sure what happened there.
You thought it was brand new.
I thought I was in the Twilight Zone on the internet simultaneously. I was very confused.
So Shap, we got to get the details on this. Did you go actually get it, quote unquote, detailed, or was it you just get a car wash, or did you basically go in to a chop shop and say, hey, throw a complete new body over the top of this baby?
Well, I'm glad you guys are so interested in my car. First of all, I just want to say, long-time listener, first-time caller, love the show.
We love it. Thank you.
I took a trip out to Laughlin, so any Brian Shapiro stalkers could come out here and see me. And before I made the trip, I said, I got to fix up this vehicle a little bit. So I went out to I was just going to get a quick vacuum and car wash, but then they suckered me into cleaning the seats and everything. So, but it took 2 hours. So they might have wore some hazmat outfits. I don't know. That's the rumor. But they did a very good job. The car, I'm not going to say it's as good as new. It's as good as an 04 Hyundai Elantra. That's what I'll say.
So, Brian, a lot of times they'll take power washers to the outside of cars, but I have to admit, it might have not have been a bad thing if they took a power washer to the inside of your car, right? And it could be, spick and span and spotless.
Would that be a first time in the history of cars?
It might be. I don't know. I do have an announcement to make, by the way. A presidential candidate will be appearing in studio on our show Tuesday. His name is Representative Seth Moulton. He did 4 tours in Iraq, Afghanistan. He's a congressman from Massachusetts. They just wrote an article about him in Rolling Stone today. So he's going to be joining us in studio on Tuesday. And that should be interesting. Democrat. So that'll be fun.
That's going to be a lot of fun, Brian, because having a Democrat live in studio on this station, with the Vegas Take fan base that we have as far as our callers.
And Ron Futrell.
Yes.
Well,
And myself.
this guy's really smart. He's got 3 degrees from Harvard.
Oh, that's it? Just 3?
Hold on. Let me just hold on a second. Jared Kushner went to Harvard, so let me rephrase that. I believe this guy's smart not because he went to Harvard. His father didn't put up $5 million for him to get into Harvard. I believe he's smart for other reasons. All due respect to Jared Kushner. Wait, let me rephrase that. I don't have any respect for Jared Kushner. So whenever I hear Harvard, I guess that doesn't necessarily mean you're smart. Am I wrong on that, guys?
No, you're not wrong at all. In fact, what you're saying is that he just happens to be a smart person that ended up going to Harvard. Right?
I kind of have a wicked smart mentality here. And Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon style.
That's good.
Will Hunting. I think that just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean that you're the top of the game. And I'd much rather have someone who cleans the floor at Harvard.
Well, listen, guys. I'm a Rhodes Scholar. I went to Central Connecticut State University. So, I mean, you're absolutely right.
As did I go to Framingham State University
and
as well, too.
What were each of your mascots, by the way? I've never asked you these questions, but I'm very interested in finding out.
Well, it pains me to say this, living in Las Vegas. We were the Blue Devils. And I know that's completely ridiculous because, speaking of Duke, but we were the Blue Devils, and it was a Blue Devils, a horrible mascot. It's terrible. But I don't know what my university is known for. Maybe Keith Kloss, the former 7'7" who played for the Clippers, who didn't have much of an NBA career.
He did have a great NBA afro, though.
And he did average at least, I believe, 3.5 points a game, something like that. So he was on the court.
His purr wasn't terrible.
How are the callers in hour number one, by the way? Let's just have this conversation on the air right now.
Brian, I talked about this on the air, right? Because we all know what's going to happen. When you start asking Republicans and Trump supporters and those that listen to our show and listen to our station about the Democratic debate, there's no way it's going to go positive, right, Brian? There's no way that they're going to come on here and start singing praises of Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg or Joe Biden.
I'll tell you what.
You knew that wasn't going to happen.
Listen, if you don't give Kamala Harris any credit for what happened last night, you either didn't watch it or you're a right-wing biased buffoon, one of my favorite words to use.
Yes.
I thought she was fantastic. I thought she did a really good job. And what I've been saying about Joe Biden for weeks now, and the reason why I am not going to support him, a perfect example of that was last night. He cannot admit he made a mistake. And I would never vote for somebody like that. I'm sorry. I want to vote for somebody that admits they're wrong. Hey, you know what? 20, 30 years ago, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have worked with those people. But instead, I think Kamala Harris did appropriately what she should have done. She went after him and exposed him. I'm going to tell you something. And Jason, JD, I apologize.
Whoa.
JD right. Has mentioned this, and I really am starting to agree with him now. I think Donald Trump, out of all the people that are on that stage, Kamala Harris, I think he would have the toughest time with her. I think he beats Joe Biden. And, Chris, I know you probably disagree with us on that, but I think she was fantastic. I think she was, very aggressive. She went at Biden, very strong in her opinions, very intelligent. I love the fact she has a background as a DA, very good at debating. And I became a Kamala Harris fan yesterday, I'll be honest.
I don't think there's any doubt she put her best foot forward last night. Now, it doesn't propel her yet to being the Democratic nominee, but she absolutely has a very good shot at it. And look, we'll see what happens. There's still going to be, more debates ahead. There's still going to be more opportunities for her to kind of elevate herself. But, I think, Brian, you're right. I think she was a clear winner in this debate last night. But there were also, Brian, there were also clear losers, right? I mean, there are also people that did not perform well.
Go to the first debate the night before. The buffoons that were trying to speak Spanish to try to get votes. Booker, O'Rourke.
And look, I heard you guys talking about that. I think you guys take it a little bit over the top. I mean, look, it was.
Okay, Chris, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Can you say right now on the air that you believe those several people that spoke in Espanol?
See.
Do you believe that they were genuine and they only did that because they care so much about others that speak Spanish? Or do you believe that they did it because they wanted to get some votes and score some points? Because
here's the thing, Brian. You're giving me two options, okay? And look, there's a number of other options here. It could be, yes. Do I think that they were, trying to be perceived as people as inclusive individuals, as, they're trying to, you guys use the word pander. I would probably say that, yeah. Are they trying to pander towards people to get votes from the Latin community? Absolutely. But it's not like there's no that's not breaking news by any stretch of the imagination. Politicians do that all the time, and so talking about whether or not they're actually doing that to win votes. I mean, yes, they are, but
Chris, here's what's really pathetic about this whole thing. You got Julian Castro, who is a champion for illegals, for rights, and look. I think he's a very passionate guy. He's an intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. But how pathetic is it that if there's any guy on that stage that should have been speaking Spanish, it was Julian Castro. And guess what? The guy can't speak a lick of Spanish. The only thing he can say is, I'm Julian Castro. I'm running for president. He can say that in Spanish. Doesn't understand it. Can't speak it. I think that's pathetic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just think that's embarrassing.
I think Castro's only a VP guy. He's not going to be a president guy. So you asked about the callers. The callers were great, but we did have a caller named Jacob call in.
Jacob Wool called in again?
He called in.
We called in, but
he heard Chris's voice, and he hung up immediately.
I think he was very disappointed, Brian, that you weren't on the other end where he could try to
So listen to this, Brian. So Jacob Wool, and I just put a post out today, a poll on the Twitter page saying, hey, how many fake Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts does this guy have? But on the Mike Lavinati video, which we released today on Twitter, the In the Ring in studio live from the Vegas Take, he created 7 different accounts and had about 10 different types of dialogue. I'm talking like writing a script pretending to be different people, insulting you, insulting Michael Avenatti, insulting Susan Moreno, a bunch of people who are supporters of Michael Avenatti. That's what Jacob Wohl did today, and I think he was.
The guy, if you look up his Wikipedia page, for those of you that don't know, he's a young guy in his early 20s who has made a career out of lying, defaming people. He even faked his own death threats. That's how sick this guy is. And he sent me a bunch of emails. He's a Michael Avenatti hater. And look, if you don't like Michael Avenatti, that's fine, but this guy takes it to a whole new level. He faked stories. And look, like I said, just go on his Wikipedia. Probably a guy that's probably not even worth talking about. He's a sick guy, kid, whatever you want to call him. Attacks everybody on the left.
He's definitely a misguided kid.
He has nothing better to do with his time than to create fake accounts. And look, one thing I'll say about Michael Avenatti is he's not a coward. He'll debate anybody. But what would you call somebody that puts up fake social media accounts, not saying who they really are? And then when I actually invited him to come on and debate me, and he wouldn't do it. He just wanted to call in and insult Avenatti. So what does it say about a guy like that? He's a coward.
And I do have to say, though, Brian, it was absolute radio gold to hear that Brian Shapiro rant JT when he actually got on the horn and Michael Avenatti was in studio. And Brian was hilarious because he's like, you know what? I'll let you respond, Michael, but first I have to say something. And then he just rolled on and just totally tore him a brand new one. It was classic.
Well, it's pathetic. Look, the bottom line is we'll take anybody calling in. That's fine. But when somebody emails me or messages me and says their only reason for calling in is to insult somebody, especially if it's a guest, that's when I'm going to go after them. And you have no credibility, if you're going to call in and we know who you are. Just come on. I mean, call in and ask a legitimate question. But if you're not going to do that, then that's what's going to happen. So I would imagine he'll probably be calling in again, and that's fine. I just don't know what it's like. How do you live your life where you wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to create 10 fake Twitter accounts or 10, and I'm just going to attack blah, 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 and you have nothing better to do with your time? I think it's actually quite sad.
Brian, enjoy yourself down there in Laughlin, and we'll see you on Monday as they get the Vegas Take rolling once again for a brand new week.
You guys going on a date after the show? What are you two up to tonight?
No big plans. I got to get ready. I'm flying out of town for a few days. I'm heading to Michigan for a family reunion, so I'm going to be gone for a few days.
I'm on my way to Target after this. I'm going to spend probably 45 minutes to an hour at Target restocking the groceries for the family.
Will you have enough time to go to Bed Bath & Beyond after?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll have enough time.
I'm looking at JD as if he's Will Ferrell from Old School here, and I'm going to try to find a beer bong for you.
I may be considering hitting a beer bong after it. It's possible.
Chris, thank you, my friend, for holding the fort.
Absolutely, Brian. Enjoy yourself. Have a good weekend.
All
okay.
Right. Take care, guys.
Bye later, Brian.
Brian Shapiro, co-host of the Vegas Take, joining us here. Just got a few minutes left. I think we do have Brady on the line, Johnny. Still, I think we still have Brady on the line to discuss. I don't know if you want to talk about the women's national team or not. Johnny, do we have Brady? Brady, what's going on?
Hey, Brady.
You're on the Vegas Take.
Brian, I wanted to bring up the fact that you defend Michael Avenatti and you really diss Jared Kushner. And I find it funny because here you have a man that's over in Israel trying to make peace, and you got a scumbag like Michael Avenatti that you defend. I just find it absolutely ridiculous what you try to portray as good on one side and evil on the other.
Well, Brady. Well, Brian's off today, but I'm sure he'd feel free to respond to that. But JD, I mean, look, they're two different guys, Jared Kushner and obviously Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti's not technically in politics, so.
Nor is he. I mean, you can think he's a scumbag, but he has not been convicted of any crimes. He has been charged with crimes. He has not been convicted of any crimes, and that's what it comes down to. He is absolutely a free man, and anyone that comes after him, he will take on head on. And there's not many people who can say that and not get themselves. And it's not like when he takes people head on, he doesn't get himself in trouble. No. He knows exactly what to say. He responds respectfully. I don't know how you can call him a scumbag because he was charged with some crimes, but also he did go after Donald Trump. He went after him hard.
Yes,
and harder than anybody else.
That's the crutch of it, right? That's why Republicans don't. Some Nike. Republicans don't like Michael Avenatti.
I mean, Nike's a $200 billion company. When you start ruffling feathers like that, you're going to cause some problems. You're going to make some waves.
And full disclosure,
and one thing people aren't talking about: Michael Avenatti is one of the main reasons why Michael Cohen is in jail.
That's 100% true. You guys brought that up the other day, so. I mean, look, they're two different guys. One of them happens to be in the Trump administration. One of them is nowhere near the Trump administration and just happens to have opposing views on everybody in the Trump administration. So, I mean, Brady, I understand what you're trying to get at, I guess, but the point being is that Michael Avenatti, making the comparison doesn't really hold water, to say the least. It is the Vegas Take coming your way live. Great show today. Had a chance to talk with Jameson Welsh from Drive Time Sports about all things NBA. We got into it about
literally all things NBA.
All things NBA, JD. Talked a lot about, of course, the Democratic debates of the last 2 days. And didn't get a chance to elaborate too much on the G20 summit, but I'm sure JD and Brian on Monday will get a chance to kind of talk about all the talking points there as President Trump got a chance to meet with some of the world leaders on the big stage there in Japan. I'm Chris Wynn. Had a lot of fun filling in for Brian Shapiro today, along with JD. JD, appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, my friend. And to all the listeners out there as well, too, have a safe and happy weekend. The legendary Ken Thompson with SportsX Radio is coming up next here on 50,000 watts of Radio Gold Standard. It is 101.5 FM, 720 AM. KDWN.